Many people may be surprised to realize just how many different poetic devices they incorporate into their everyday speech, including the two we're about to discuss in this episode, Epistrophe and Anaphora. To clear up any possible confusion based on how the words sound, epistrophe and apostrophe are two different things. An apostrophe is a punctuation mark to indicate possession or the omission of letters and numbers, while an epistrophe is the repetition of phrases or words at the end of successive clauses or sentences. By the way, we totally yanked that definition off of literarydevices.net. They have a ton of awesome information on their website. Check them out after this episode and let them know Poetry Defined sent you. Okay, time to share some examples. An excerpt from Advocate of Wordz poem, Pyramids. They built them is the repeated phrase at the end of each sentence. It emphasizes the focus of the poem and builds a cadence. Another example. How about the oath one must take in court? I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the truth is, that's a perfect example we got from EpistropheExamples.com. They have a ton more for those of you who are interested. Like, I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. We'll be back to this a little later. Let's get to our next poetic device. An anaphora is the repetition of phrases or words at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences. It is the exact opposite of what an epistrophe is. Here are a couple of examples. An excerpt from the opening of Charles Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities. As you can see, at the beginning of each successive clause are the words, it was the author utilizes this device to build a cadence which you can hear in your head or out loud when read. The following example is an excerpt from one of history's most famous speeches, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. I have a dream is the repetitive phrase, once again at the beginning of each successive sentence. It produced a rhythm and drove home his message. A pet peeve of mine is when authors haphazardly repeat words. Though the epistrophe and anaphora do repeat words, they do so with a purpose, not haphazardly. Through repetition, they emphasize a subject or thought and they develop a rhythm. Before we bookend this episode properly, I'd like to shamelessly plug Poetry Defined. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. Let us inspire you. Let us into your hearts. Let us get more views so we can have a real budget. At this point, some of you may be wondering the same thing we were wondering while doing research. Is there a name for a poem or literary device which has both an epistrophe and an anaphora in it? The answer is yes. A symplosi is when there is a repetition of a phrase or word at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences, and another repetitive phrase or word is at the end of the same successive clauses or sentences. As in this example we just made up. Poetry is the madness that makes us complete. Poetry is a language which makes us complete. Poetry in all its flaws and glory makes us complete. So, how many of you have incorporated an epistrophe or anaphora into your work or everyday speech? Did you know you were using a poetic device? Have you noticed everyone uses it whether they realize it or not? Let us know in the comments. That's it for this installment. We hope you enjoyed this, and we graciously thank you for watching Poetry Defined. When different vowels appear within identical consonant pairs. This can be seen in the words block and black, rod and red. Standout qualities. Both metaphor and simile share a similar purpose as stated by the Purdue Online Writing Lab.